Welcome back to Movies Outpost. Today's video will feature one epic franchise that goes by the name The Final Destination. This franchise consists of 6 movies and we'll go through each one of them one by one until we reach the very end. Trust me when I tell you, the last movie is the best one, so without further ado, make sure to sit back, relax, and as always, enjoy the recap. Final Destination begins with Alex Browning's mother telling him that his friend's father will pick him up at 3:30 a.m. because the high school bus will leave for the airport at 5. She notices a tag on the bag and moves to remove it, but Alex stops her, saying he needs it for luck. However, she tears it off anyway. Alex's father comments on how Alex is going on a 10-day trip to Paris, advising him to make the most of it. He goes to bed, but he soon wakes up as he hears someone calling his name. Later at the airport, Alex notices the flight information display is glitching, which confuses him. The airport check-in staff puts a tag on his luggage, displaying Flight 180 to Paris as his final destination, and the staff tells him that their departure time is the same as his birthday. But Alex is still distracted by the glitching display systems. As Alex goes to the restroom, he hears the song of famous singer John Denver, who died in a plane crash, but doesn't think much of it as an announcement is made asking the passengers to board the plane. Alex eyes the stormy weather worriedly, but his friend Todd urges him forward. As they get inside, they hear a baby crying loudly, and Todd's brother George remarks that it's a good sign since no one would expect a plane to go down with a baby and a handicapped man on board. Alex goes to his seat, which is in the very back, but 2 girls ask him to switch seats so they can sit together, and he goes to sit with Todd. The plane takes off and the class cheers, but Alex is very anxious as the plane shakes from turbulence before finally becoming stable. However, just as everyone relaxes, violent shaking causes the lights to flicker and oxygen masks to drop from overhead compartments. Everyone rushes to put them on, but a fire starts, causing a side of the plane to tear open, which sucks several seats out of the plane, while the teachers try to save their students. Suddenly, the fire worsens and completely burns everyone inside, which causes Alex to wake up from his nightmare and notice that the 2 girls want to switch seats with him. He hysterically explains that the plane is going to explode, but no one listens to him, and a student named Carter even gets in a fight with Alex, causing the airline staff to remove everyone standing in the aisle. This includes both teachers as well as students entering the plane unaware of the situation, which are named Billy, Alex, Carter, and his girlfriend Terry. Todd then decides to leave to check on Alex, and another student named Clear gets out willingly. A teacher named Valerie convinces the airport staff to let one of the teachers board the plane with the students while the other stays back. Valerie sends Larry as he knows more French. Alex is profusely sweating and Todd calms him down, saying his parents are on the way. Carter watches the plane take off while Alex explains the whole dream to Valerie. But Carter gets angry and mocks Alex, which starts another fight. Just as they fight, the plane blows up nearby, causing the security to rush there. Later, they all stare at Alex and he tells them that he wasn't the cause of the accident. So Valerie asks him if there are any survivors, but Alex doesn't know. Mr. Howard from the National Transportation Security Board visits them along with FBI agents, who investigate them individually. They question Alex about how he knew about the plane and why he wished Carter was on the plane when they got in the fight, but Alex only tells them that he got a weird feeling and then saw it happen. After that, they're all allowed to meet their parents, but no one comes to pick Clear up, so Alex's parents drop her off. Later, with his parents sleeping in the living room, Alex weeps watching the news about the plane. After more than a month, they all attend the memorial where an eagle statue having the names of all those who died is unveiled. And while unloading the flowers, Todd comes to Alex and mentions his brother George's death, saying his father forbids them from talking but suggests they could take a trip once his father forgets. Alex goes to Valerie, but she refuses to talk to him, saying that he scares her. Afterwards, Billy goes to Alex and jokes about dying too young, saying his driving instructor warned him he would die young, and asks if Alex thinks it's true. But Alex tells him that he isn't going to die anytime soon. Next, Clear comes and thanks him for saving her life. Later that night, Todd is in the restroom when the water valve starts leaking. Meanwhile, Alex is in his room reading a magazine when an owl sits on his window, so he throws his magazine to shoo it away. The magazine gets caught in the fan and tears into pieces till a piece saying Todd falls on Alex. On the other side, Todd removes dried laundry as water from the leaking valve reaches him, making him slip and get strangled by the clothesline. He desperately tries to free himself but fails and dies on the spot, while the water mysteriously returns to the toilet. When Alex reaches Todd's house, they are taking his dead body away, and Clear, who is hiding behind a tree, tells Alex to quickly hide. However, Todd's father blames Alex for making Todd feel guilty for George's death. Believing that the guilt became too much for him to handle, which we know isn't the case, Alex tells him that Todd would never do that, but he doesn't believe Alex, and the FBI eyes Alex suspiciously. The next morning, Alex visits Clear to ask her why she was at Todd's house the previous night, but instead of answering him, she shows him a spring with a question mark attached, saying that it reminds her of Alex. She tells him that they haven't spoken even once in 4 years of high school, but she felt a connection with him and trusted his word. She says that she knows Alex can still feel it, as something from that day has stayed with him because she can feel it too. But what if Todd was the first of all those who got off the plane? She asks him if that's what he is feeling, but he tells her that he wishes to see Todd one last time, and she takes him to Todd's dead body. Todd's arm suddenly moves, startling them both, but Mortician Bloodworth explains that chemicals cause cadaveric spasms. Bloodworth reveals that the tiny marks on Todd's neck are from him pulling the wire, which makes Alex conclude that Todd's death was an accident. But Bloodworth tells him that there are no accidents in death, as it leads one to the grave in one way or another. When Alex asks if they can escape death, Bloodworth explains they already have by leaving the plane, but now death has changed course, and cheating it could incite fury. Alex apologizes for breaking in, but Bloodworth tells him not to worry as he will see him soon. The next morning, Alex tells Clear that he didn't see Todd die, but he received a sign hinting at death's design. However, Clear doesn't believe it, saying anyone can find death omens if they look hard enough. Alex replies that maybe it was their time to die in the crash, but because they avoided it, death is trying to design another way to take them. But Clear thinks that Alex has lost his mind. Meanwhile, Carter and Terry drive by, making Carter spot Alex, turn the car around and get out to fight him. Surprisingly, Valerie is also in the same coffee shop, and Terry angrily tells Carter that if he wants to make the plane crash the most important event of his life, then she can't stay with him. She walks into the road, telling Carter to move on from the accident, when suddenly a bus hits her. Later, Alex is watching TV when they get a call from Clear, and Alex's dad picks it up, but Alex refuses to talk to her. When his father questions his isolation, Alex says he needs to understand some things first. The news reports that the accident in Flight 180 was caused by an electrical connector to the pump that leaked combustible fluids, which caught fire due to a spark. He quickly traces the path of the explosion and notices that Todd and Terry were the nearest threat, and Valerie is next. Elsewhere, Valerie is packing her things and looks outside to find Alex there. So she quickly calls the FBI agent handling their case. While Alex tries to puncture her tire, the agent shows up and tells Alex to come with him. He explains the pattern to them in the investigation room, but they don't believe him, and Alex comments on how he saved 6 lives that day, yet everyone treats him like a freak. Having nothing to hold him back, they let him go. On the other hand, Valerie makes tea but throws it away in fear after looking at the school logo. After calming down, she pours vodka into a cup that cracks, dripping vodka onto her computer and causing an explosion. A shrapnel gets inside her neck and she bleeds as she pulls it out. The fire from the explosion follows her vodka trail and causes another explosion when it reaches the bottle, which knocks her down to the ground. When she tries to reach for the rug to help stop her bleeding, she accidentally pulls down the block of knives, one of which stabs her in the chest. Alex reaches the scene, but one final explosion knocks down a chair that falls on the knife, pushing it deeper inside and killing Valerie. Alex pulls out the knife before realizing he can get in trouble if found at the scene and quickly leaves. He runs out and the entire house explodes. Later, Billy, Carter, and Clear all come to the memorial where Carter tries to carve Terry's name there and asks Clear why she called them there. She tells them to take her to Alex, as he knows which one of them is next. They eventually reach the area and Clear tells them to look in one direction while she searches the other and finds Alex sitting by the beach. He asks her if she thinks Flight 180 is still somewhere up there in the sky. Clear opens up, explaining how she constantly worried about her parents dying as a child. At 10, her father was shot in a convenience store while her mother remarried and abandoned her. She tells him that she believes there is a haven for all people who lose their lives and all families are complete. She convinces him to come with them, and in the car, Alex tells them that he can't return home because the FBI must be looking for him. Clear mentions that Billy told police he saw Alex fleeing Valerie's house, and Billy adds that police found Alex's footprints inside. Carter asks Alex who is next, but Alex doesn't answer. So both Billy and Carter start assuming it's them. Alex tells them it doesn't matter who's next, but this angers Carter, who starts speeding, believing it's better to die on his terms than wait for death. He puts his hands away from the steering wheel, but when all urge him to stop the car, he stops it in the middle of the railway track. The train is about to arrive, and Alex asks Billy to open the door, which he finally does, allowing all of them except Carter to get out. Alex tries convincing Carter to get out, but Carter arrogantly insists he's not supposed to die now. He tries starting the car, but it won't start and the door won't open. He tells them that he can't get out, and Alex rushes to help him, eventually tearing off the seatbelt and pulling him out of the car window just before the train hits the car. Billy freaks out, saying that they should all get away from Carter, but suddenly a sharp piece broken from the car comes flying and decapitates Billy. Alex tells them that he saw the belt and knew Carter was next, but because he changed Death's design, it skipped Carter and moved over to Billy. Clear tells them that they don't have time for this, as the police will be here soon, but Alex keeps repeating that he is next on the list, which makes Clear realize that it's her turn after Alex. However, Carter tells them that the police are almost here and they should run, so they leave. Later, Alex hides in Clear's woodland cabin, having made the area as safe as possible. He talks to Death, saying he may not beat it forever, but he can for now. While throwing newspapers into the fireplace, he finds a picture of the 2 girls who switched seats with him. He realizes his original seat was at the very end, meaning Clear is next before him. On the other side, lightning hits the transformer near Clear's house, causing it to explode. Meanwhile, Alex gets out of the cabin, but gets surrounded by the police. So he uses his boat to get to the other side of the river before quickly running into the woods back with Clear. She tries to free her dog, but the water source nearby bursts, and an electric wire passes electricity through it. Clear quickly climbs a ladder and breaks a second-story window to get inside, but the electric wire shifts to the house, causing all electrical items to explode. She rushes to the garage and starts her car to reverse it back out of the garage door, but it doesn't work and petrol starts leaking in the garage. She gets trapped with the electric beam right on her windshield and Alex arrives there. He tells her to stay still and shovels the electric wire away, which sends it into the garage and makes the petrol catch fire. Realizing the car will explode, Alex grabs the wire to sacrifice himself, and the explosion throws him into the garage while Clear gets out of the car just in time. The police arrive there as well, and they all rush to check on Alex. 6 months later, Alex, Carter, and Clear reach Paris and are drinking in a cafe. When Alex tells them that he helped Clear escape death, which means that he is still on the list, he suddenly starts seeing signs again and quickly gets up, telling Carter and Clear to stay away from him, but Clear calls his name, which saves him from getting run over by a bus. However, the bus hits a street light that hits the big 180 sign, which swings down to hit Alex, but Carter intervenes and saves him. Alex says that death skipped him, making Carter wonder who is next when suddenly the sign swings again, hitting Carter. A year after the incident of Flight 180, a news channel reports that the survivors died in bizarre accidents, and the guest speaker explains that an unseen presence decides when they die, which he calls death. He explains that death has a design and anyone who cheats it is met with a worse fate, but the anchor person dismisses it as mere interpretation. A woman named Kimberly watches as the guest speaker warns viewers that today might be their last. The next morning, she gets ready for her trip to Daytona and her father asks her if she has packed all the things that she needs. When Kimberly's best friend named Shayna arrives, they go to pick up 2 more friends, Donna and Frankie. On the way, they encounter a woman who drops her collected cans and the boys laugh at her. On Route 23, Kimberly turns on the radio where one station reports on Flight 180, so she switches to another playing Highway to Hell, then quickly changes again. Later, Kimberly's father calls, warning her about a transmission fluid leak that needs checking, but Donna, who's doing drugs, urges her to switch to the right lane as a police car approaches and might arrest them for narcotics. Once the police are away, Kimberly suggests stopping to check the car, but Shayna tells her to relax. However, Kimberly notices strange omens like a truck driver drinking beer, a child crashing toy cars, but dismisses them. The police car gets behind a truck loaded with wood logs and Officer Burke accidentally spills coffee on himself. As he tries to clean it, the chains from the truck break and a huge log breaks through his windshield, killing him. In the chaos, biker Eugene gets crushed by his motorcycle while Rory's car flips and gets struck by a truck. A businesswoman named Kat also hits a log and her car flips over, while the same happens to Kimberly's car. Another car hits a truck, which causes a huge explosion. And Kimberly weeps while watching the driver named Evan struggle to get out of the burning car before he faces another explosion. As a truck barrels toward them, Kimberly snaps back to reality, where they're about to enter the highway. She gets spooked by the same events happening and stops her car in the middle of the road to prevent any other vehicles from using the route. The police car behind her pulls next to her, and she explains that there is going to be a huge accident. People start gathering and Kimberly sees the truck with the logs pass and tells Burke that he needs to stop that truck or everyone will die, but Burke doesn't listen to her. Suddenly, the pileup happens and Burke goes to call backup. However, he rushes and pulls Kimberly just in time while another truck hits her car, taking the lives of all her friends. Later, they're all in police custody, and Burke asks Kimberly to tell the events in detail, so she explains her vision, saying it was just like Alex on Flight 180. Biker Eugene explains that all Flight 180 survivors died one by one because death hunted them, but Burke adds that one survivor, Clear, is now in Stony Brook Institution. A recent widow, Nora Carpenter, and her son Tim are also among the few who evaded death because of Kimberly's intervention, and Tim says that death might be coming for them now, but Nora quickly dismisses him and leaves. Kimberly's father arrives to pick her up, and later, she tells him that she feels scared that everyone will die. On the other side, Evan reaches his apartment and starts cooking, but the mysterious wind appears, which causes a magnetic letter attached to the fridge to fall into his takeout, which he puts in the oven to reheat. He checks voicemails from girls swooning over his recent lottery win while unpacking new watches and jewelry. The oven starts sparking as he accidentally drops his new ring into the sink. While trying to retrieve it, his hand gets stuck and the food catches fire. Attempting to subdue the flames, he worsens the fire and burns the apartment. However, he frees his hand and breaks a window to escape via the fire exit, but slips on discarded food and a ladder crashes down, striking his eyes and killing him. Elsewhere, Burke searches the news about Alex and finds that he was killed by a falling brick. Meanwhile, the news of the accident on Route 23 is followed by the news of the death of Evan, which all the other survivors watch. Later, unable to sleep and spooked by tree branch reflections, Kimberly decides to find Clear. She finds the address of Stony Brook Institution and heads there in the morning, where she is asked to remove all objects at the request of Clear. She enters the room, but Clear maintains distance, and after hearing Kimberly's story, Clear explains that the Flight 180 survivors died in their original crash order. Since Burke saved Kimberly, she's now last on death's list. However, Kimberly says that her friends were supposed to die last in her premonition, which makes Clear believe that the list is moving backwards this time. When Kimberly asks what she is supposed to do now, Clear tells her to watch out for the signs. Kimberly doesn't understand, so Clear asks her if there were any ominous signs before the accident, and Kimberly mentions a few, so Clear tells her to look out for them. Clear tells Kimberly to worry about herself and abandon the others, but Kimberly feels responsible for saving them. She asks Clear to help, but Clear shows her Alex's death photo, reminding her that all her friends are dead. She tells Kimberly to get out, but Kimberly replies that Clear is already dead because she's hiding in a room before leaving. At home, Kimberly finds Burke outside, informing her that all survivors are meeting at his apartment tonight. However, Kimberly notices pigeons and tells Burke it's a sign, as Nora and Tim will be attacked by pigeons. Meanwhile, Clear reads the news about Evan's death and decides to finally stop hiding. Elsewhere, Nora and Tim are at the dentist, whose clinic is near a construction site. As the dentist fills Tim's cavity, a pigeon crashes through the window, and simultaneously the aquarium starts leaking, with water dripping onto a nearby electrical switch. As the dentist gives laughing gas to Tim, a commotion occurs outside and he goes to check. A pigeon has broken through the glass and water wets the gas switch, cutting off Tim's oxygen. But the dental assistant rescues him just in time. As he and Nora leave safely, they encounter Kimberly running toward them, screaming about pigeons. Tim runs at the pigeons to scatter them, causing a construction worker to accidentally drop a large glass panel that crushes Tim. Nora weeps, refusing to come with Kimberly, so they head back to Kimberly's house, where she tells Burke that she is scared. However, Clear shows up there and takes them to the mortician Bloodworth, who mentions that he was expecting her while cleaning the body of Evan. She asks him if he knows how to stop death, but Bloodworth tells her that no one can cheat death, but she tells him that she and Alex escaped it multiple times, so there must be a way. Bloodworth warns that people are most alive before death, so Clear should be careful. As he puts Evan's body in the crematorium and prepares to leave, Kimberly stops him, so he tells her that only new life can defeat death. They head to the gas station, and Kimberly gets another vision of herself drowning in a white van. She shares this with Burke and Clear, and Burke remembers that a pregnant woman was among the survivors, making Clear realize that if she gives birth, then the slate will become clear, as new life can defeat death. Burke checks CCTV footage and discovers the white vehicle belongs to Marcus and Isabella Hudson, but she never came to the police station after the incident. At a meeting with the survivors, they explain everything they know, and Nora realizes she's next, but Eugene doesn't believe them. Clear tells them that they have to protect each other, and Kimberly passes them walkie-talkies, saying that if she ever tells them about a sign, they need to avoid it at all costs. As Clear explains that they can all see signs, Eugene cuts her off, insisting he controls his life. But when he grabs his jacket to leave, he triggers an object that breaks the window. Clear explains that they need to look out for each other, sleep in shifts, and make this place death-proof. Nora is heading out, saying that she no longer has anyone by her side and can accept death to be with her family. But Kimberly stops her, telling her that they can fight this. However, Nora tells her that she has to plan the funeral for Tim, so she heads out and Eugene follows her, saying he doesn't believe in death's list. When Rory opens a cupboard, items fall out, creating a shadow resembling a man with hooks. Recognizing this as a sign, they quickly contact Nora, who's in an elevator with Eugene and an elderly man carrying a box of hooked prosthetic arms. Nora's hair gets stuck in one of the hooks, and while Eugene tries to free her, the elevator door opens, and her head gets stuck in the door, which has been having a mechanical issue. The elevator moves up and she gets decapitated by it. Eugene storms back into the apartment, grabs a gun, and declares he controls his life. Burke steps in and secures it. When Kimberly asks if it was empty, Burke shows it's actually loaded. Looks like it just isn't Eugene's time yet. They head to Isabella, who is in protective custody, but her water breaks, so she tells the officer to rush her to the hospital, and they take her van. On the other side, Eugene says he cheated death before as a student murdered a teacher who would have been him, but his transfer was delayed. As they share survival stories, Clear points out how all of them avoided death because they witnessed a Flight 180 survivor's death. Kat was on the bus that killed Terry, so she missed a business conference where everyone died from gas poisoning. Rory was in Paris when Carter was killed by the sign, causing him to miss a show that he had tickets for, and the theater collapsed. Eugene was transferred in Valerie's place, but she died before it. Burke was investigating Billy's death scene, which caused him to miss a fatal shootout. Kimberly watched the news about Todd's death in a mall, while her mother waiting for her was shot by carjackers. Clear says that if people on Flight 180 had died, all the people on Route 23 would have died already. That's why death is now closing its list from the opposite end. However, their car encounters the van taking Isabella to the hospital, and both vehicles quickly turn, resulting in them crashing into a PVC pipe. Eugene is hurt, but he is quickly transferred to a hospital in an ambulance, while a teenager named Brian tries to help Kat get out of the car because a log is blocking her legs and the door. However, Brian is about to be hit by a car, but Rory saves him. Kimberly joins Rory, who hands her his wallet and keys, asking her to remove the drugs and things that might hurt his mom from his apartment after he dies. Burke gets the news that Isabella is at the hospital, and Clear goes to Kat, but Kat tells them to go and end this cycle. Rescue workers try breaking open the car door, triggering the airbag and fatally impaling Kat's head on a PVC pipe. Her smoke falls, igniting a gasoline trail from the news van, causing the explosion to launch a barbed wire fence at Rory, slicing him apart. Heading to the hospital, Kimberly envisions a nurse named Kalargian choking someone and concludes she wants to kill Isabella and her baby. Meanwhile, Eugene is in the hospital when all the doors and vents start shutting, making him realize it's his turn to die. On the other side, a nurse calls for Dr. Kalargian for the stat cesarean, as Isabella faces complications in delivery. When the trio reaches the hospital, Clear heads to Eugene while Burke and Kimberly go to Isabella and manage to stop Kalargian from reaching the operating room. Isabella finally gives birth to a boy, and Kimberly hugs Burke in happiness. Eugene's previously detached oxygen supply turns on, giving him relief. But as Kimberly hugs Clear, she has another vision revealing Isabella was never meant to die in the pile-up, so her baby doesn't count as new life. Clear rushes to Eugene, but just as she opens the door, a spark causes an explosion because of the high oxygen in the room, incinerating Eugene and Clear. Kimberly is taken aback but quickly realizes that the premonitions are about her, as she is the one who is drowning in the white van and notices a newspaper reporting a man getting a new life after he is saved from drowning. Kimberly tells Burke to get Dr. Kalargian before going into an ambulance and driving it into a lake. As the ambulance sinks, Burke dives in to save her, but he can't open the door or break the windows. Kimberly passes out, experiencing flashbacks of the recent deaths, and when she wakes up, she finds herself in the hospital as Dr. Kalargian administers electric shocks.
Come on, ready? Clear!
Kimberly almost died and was revived, which means she has a new life and has cheated death. A few months later, Kimberly, her father, Burke, and Brian's family have dinner together, where Brian's father explains that Brian cheated death, as he was almost hit by the news van on the day of the second accident, but Rory saved him. Burke and Kimberly look at each other and worry. And suddenly they hear an explosion, and Brian's arm comes flying right in front of his mom, who screams his name. Final Destination 3 begins in an amusement park where a group of high school students is taking the drop tower, while their friend Wendy Christensen takes a picture. In the picture, she notices the V in dive has no lights, making it read die. She heads to grab food along with her friends and explains she must submit today's photos tomorrow for the yearbook deadline. So she goes to take more pictures. After getting out, she finds her sister Julie Christensen in the crowd and threatens to tell their mother, who is unaware of Julie being in the amusement park. Taking more pictures, she notices a demonic statue with cryptic warnings like they can run but they can't hide. They move to the roller coaster, which has that statue as the door, and Wendy feels weird, but her boyfriend Jason comforts her, so they head in. The roller coaster is called Devil's Flight, and the devil statue loudly announces that no one returns from this ride. In line, Wendy remains worried, but a classmate, Ian McKinley, reassures her that roller coasters operate on physics with very low accident rates, and his girlfriend Erin agrees, citing odds of 1 in 250 million. They get assigned the front seats, but because Wendy is the only one who doesn't want to sit in the front, they toss a coin, and their friend Kevin has to sit in the back with Wendy, while Jason goes to the front with Carrie. While waiting for the gates to open, the popular girls Ashley and Ashlyn sit in front of Wendy and Kevin, and Frankie Cheeks shoves past Wendy to steal their seats, forcing them to the very back. The over-the-shoulder restraints are lowered, which leads to fluid leaking, but the ride starts with the students cheering. Once they reach the first high, the fluid starts leaking more profusely, and the chain lets go of the roller coaster. In their first loop, Frankie's camera falls, resulting in a mechanical malfunction that unlocks the safety measures and takes off a few wheels of the roller coaster. As they reach another high, that causes the carts to separate. The first few fall off, while the carts in the back are still intact. Lewis slips from his cart, but when Kevin grabs him, another cart strikes Lewis, sending him flying into the track. Because a cart managed to break the track, the roller coaster stops midway on a loop, causing Erin and Ian to fall from the roller coaster. Kevin asks Wendy to help him rock the ride, and they manage to move through the loop. But because Kevin is standing to remove his jacket stuck in the cart, he gets cut in 2 pieces because of a protruding pipe. Lastly, Wendy's cart hits the back end and she falls onto the track. But just before the impact, Wendy wakes up back in reality and realizes she had a premonition. She notices the same events happening, so just before the ride can begin, she starts screaming, asking them to let her off the ride. She warns that hydraulics will rupture and tracks will collapse. So the supervisor lets people in the back exit, and Wendy explains she saw the entire accident, but Lewis curses her, prompting Kevin to fight him. Ashley and Ashlyn decide to get out of the fight, while Jason keeps asking the operator to let him out, but no one listens to him. The people still in the roller coaster start chanting for the ride to start. Just as it starts, Wendy screams for Jason, telling them that it's not fine, but she is dragged away by the supervisor, who tells her to calm down. However, the accident takes place while Wendy screams for Jason. A few days later, she goes to the memorial corner in high school and weeps while looking at the pictures of her friends. But suddenly she feels a mysterious air that blows out a candle lit in memory of departed souls. She empties her locker and quickly leaves with Kevin following after her. She tells him she picked up her diploma and won't attend the graduation ceremony since there's nothing left for her, but Kevin asks her to come, saying Jason told him to take care of her. However, Wendy reminds him that they don't like each other and walks away. Ashley and Ashlyn stop her, inviting her to the salon, which only angers her more. As she gets in her car, Kevin rushes over, explaining how Alex from Flight 180 had a similar vision before the plane crash, and the survivors died in their intended order unless someone intervened, causing death to skip them. But Wendy doesn't listen and drives away. Later, Wendy tells Julie she feels immense guilt over Jason's death, believing she should have tried harder to stop the roller coaster, and asks Julie to stay with her after she moves out. Julie agrees and comforts her by giving her a Lucky Charm bracelet before asking if she can use the school camera for graduation. Wendy agrees and sadly looks at Jason's pictures from the trip, before again feeling the mysterious wind. Meanwhile, Ashley and Ashlyn head to a tanning salon and ignore their instructions by taking their drinks inside the tanning room. Ashley feels cold and turns the temperature up against the warnings. Ashley retrieves a CD from the rack, which causes a screw to become loose, but they don't notice and proceed to get in the tanning beds. Ashley's drink drips onto the regulator, making temperatures rise beyond safe limits. Wendy finds the girl's photo and, sensing danger, tries calling Ashley. But the CD rack crashes down, trapping them in the tanning beds. They scream for help, but the receptionist gets locked outside the salon, and eventually the beds catch fire, completely burning them. A funeral is held, and Ian tells the pastor that he's struggling to come to terms with the fact that 2 innocent girls died, and so Kevin and Lewis take Ian out of the area. Wendy calls Kevin, saying that she is at Jason's grave because she didn't want to upset anyone by showing up at the girl's funeral, so he goes there. She tells him that she feels there is no life after death, and Kevin agrees that he has been trying to connect with Carrie's spirit but has been unable to do so. Wendy tells him that ever since the accident she feels a terrifying presence around her. She shows him Abraham Lincoln's last photo with an unexplained line where he was shot, then photos of 9/11 and the Route 23 accident. But Kevin doesn't understand the relevance, so she shows him her amusement park photos. However, she starts feeling dizzy, as she doesn't even remember the last time she ate, so Kevin tells her that he will drive them to a diner. On the way, Kevin says if they're experiencing what happened to Flight 180 survivors, then Frankie is next since he sat behind Ashley and Ashlyn. She tells him she got an instinctive feeling from their picture and even called to stop them from going to the salon. Kevin asks her to show him Frankie's picture, and they almost get into an accident because Kevin is distracted. At a drive-thru, they realize Frankie might hang since he's on a rope ladder in the picture, but they deduce it might not be literal and consider other elements, like Frankie's mud chain prize. It's their turn to order, and Kevin asks Wendy what she wants, but she notices the display screen glitching to tell her that she has no control over life, making her freak out. A truck backs into their car, and Wendy spots another driverless truck sliding downhill. So she urges Kevin to get out, but they're trapped on all sides. Frankie is in the car in front of them, and they honk their horns, but he doesn't move his car. The car behind them reverses to escape while Kevin breaks the windshield and pulls Wendy out. But after the crash, their engine flies straight into Frankie's head, killing him. Wendy weeps and Kevin comforts her, but he points out that Frankie's death wasn't related to the picture, so they should try another strategy. However, Wendy feels frustrated and decides that she won't do anything to stop death anymore. But Kevin tells her that it's never better to stay in the dark. They walk to Wendy's house, and Wendy tells him that Lewis is supposed to die after Frankie. As they go through pictures, they come across one picture where Frankie's head is close to a fan, and they realize that this picture hints at his death, as an engine fan crushed his head. They find Lewis's picture with Turkish statues in the background, and Kevin explains Lewis is at football camp with the Sultan's team, so they decide to call him. Though Kevin hesitates, he tells Wendy that he doesn't want to see his picture because he would obsess over it, and leaves. The next day, they go to Lewis and explain the situation, but he thinks that they've gone crazy, while Wendy notices 2 sharp blades framed in the gym that are the same as the ones in the picture. Wendy starts feeling worried as she notices little things all around, but Lewis curses out death and continues working out when suddenly the blades fall, cutting a cable. Lewis declares himself above mortality, claiming death can't touch him. But then weights crash down, crushing his head as Wendy screams. As they head back, Wendy wonders why this is happening to her, but Kevin comforts her, saying that it's not her fault. Meanwhile, Aaron and Ian work together in a hardware store, and Ian goes to kill pigeons because they keep interrupting the alarm. Wendy and Kevin reach the store and explain the situation when suddenly the lights start flickering, causing Wendy to look around for clues, but it's only Ian messing with them. Like everyone else, the couple also thinks Wendy and Kevin are out of their mind, but Wendy gets distracted by the mysterious air that blows the chimes. Ian says dying is part of life and accidentally drops steel nails, which Aaron picks up with a magnetic stick and puts it on a shelf, triggering a falling chain. The chain tangles in a hook, and another mishap causes items to fall, triggering a forklift that hits a hammer wall. Wendy quickly realizes that Ian will die because of the wooden boards falling over him and manages to save him, but Aaron falls onto a nail gun that fires multiple nails into her head, killing her. Later, the police allow them to leave, and Kevin says he told them nothing, while Wendy reveals she told the whole story, but they didn't believe her. She says that now death has skipped Ian, so now it's their turn, but Kevin says that his father is here to pick him up, so they'll be separated for a couple of hours. He tells her to look at the pictures for more clues, while he will ask around for the two people who sat behind Ian and Aaron. The next day, Julie comes to Wendy's room to take the bracelet and leaves with her friend. When Wendy wakes, she notices the girl behind Ian and Aaron wore the same bracelet, so she calls Kevin, realizing Julie's friend Amber or Perry must have been there with Julie. She tells him that Julie has gone to the school's tricentennial celebration, and Kevin tells her that he is working as security at that event, so he will look for Julie, while he asks her to look at their pictures so they can know how they would die. She notices a picture of her and Ian and thinks something is wrong, but quickly checks Kevin's picture, with flash reflecting on his face, and Kevin realizes that most likely a firework will go off on his face. Kevin starts obsessing over anything related to fire, while Wendy, who is driving to the event, notices Ian following her. Once she gets to the event, she finds Kevin trying to convince Julie to come with her, but Julie pushes him away and leaves. Fireworks begin, and Julie continues to run away from Kevin, while Wendy, who is running after them, collides with a few other people and falls. The horse reacts to the loud fireworks and starts running on the ground, eventually dragging a man along with it. Kevin reaches Julie, insisting he's trying to help, but she flips him off, while Wendy remembers Julie's picture contained a horse and shouts a warning for Julie to be careful. Kevin pushes Julie from the horse's path, but a rope catches around her neck, dragging her. Eventually, Kevin grabs a knife and cuts the rope, saving Julie. Wendy quickly asks Julie who is sitting next to her on the roller coaster, but before she can answer, the horse runs into a flagpole that pierces Julie's friend Perry. As Kevin goes to calm the horse, Wendy realizes it's his turn and rushes toward him. The horse becomes uncontrollable, throwing Kevin into a stall where a skewer punctures a gas pipe, causing an explosion, but Wendy pulls him back. Having intervened in Kevin's death, Wendy notices Ian and tells them that they have to leave, as Ian will be the cause of her death. The trio quickly heads towards the security camp, and Kevin tells Ian to leave them alone, but Ian says that Wendy is only being paranoid. However, Ian questions whether he'll end Wendy's life just as she caused Aaron's death. He tells her that it's not his turn to die, and suddenly, a few fireworks aim towards him, but they all miss.
I'm not gonna die! It's you, Wendy! You're dead!
However, he is unable to avoid a cherry picker that crushes him. 5 months later on the subway, Wendy hears the same song from when Ian followed her, making her scared. She decides to get off at the next stop when she starts noticing more signs, but just as she is about to get off, she meets Julie, who is entering the subway. And the doors close. Julie comforts her, and Wendy introduces Julie to her college friends when suddenly she notices Kevin on the same train as well. A rat enters the subway track to eat candy, triggering a small barrier that causes a massive accident. Compartments shatter. A metal object kills Julie, and Kevin gets sucked through a window, crushed between the wall and the train. When the catastrophe comes to an end, Wendy is the sole survivor, but her leg is broken. Suddenly, she notices another train coming towards her, making her scream, but she wakes up back in reality, where it is revealed that this was another vision. Kevin realizes it's happening again, and the three quickly try to stop the train midway, but they're too late and a loud crash is heard. The final destination begins at the McKinley Speedway, where college student Nick O'Bannon watches an auto race with his girlfriend Lori Milligan and their friends. One of them, named Hunt Wynorski, says that he wants to see a crash, but his girlfriend Janet scolds him. Nick arrives shortly with the food, but as he sits down he discovers cracks in the bench and the wall, making him ask Hunt how old the building is. Soon, the wind knocks off a bottle of motor oil, which seeps onto the track and causes a car to slip, but the driver quickly regains control. Janet wonders if it's safe to sit here, so Lori tells her not to worry, as they are behind a fence. However, a flyer lands near Nick, which has pictures of the drivers who passed away in accidents, making Nick worried. A car stops at the pit stop but returns to the track before a screwdriver can be taken out, which falls onto the racetrack. On the next lap, a screwdriver punctures a car's tire, causing it to flip and a wheel to fall in the audience, striking a woman in the neck. They all rush to get out, but the burning car flies into the grandstand and destroys it. More cars get caught in the pile-up, and a blade comes flying, slicing through 2 more people. A woman falls and is almost crushed by a stampede, but is hit by a motor engine, killing her instantly. While running, a man falls onto a wooden shard of broken benches and dies. More cars explode, eventually causing the building to start falling, which kills many, including Hunt and Janet. Nick tells Lori to rush to the other exit, but debris falls between them, and another explosion kills Lori and the security guard before Nick finally falls onto a rebar that fatally impales him. Nick snaps back to reality, realizing it was a premonition as events begin unfolding exactly as he foresaw, causing Nick to panic. Hunt tries to calm Nick down, but a fight breaks out and they rush out. However, they are followed by a few angry spectators and the security guard. Nick tells them there will be a huge crash, but no one believes him until they hear screams. One of them, named Carter, tries to rush inside to save his wife, but is stopped by the security guard named George. Mechanic Andy Kutzer and his girlfriend Nadia are also among those who escape death by leaving the grandstand, but a stray wheel flies out of the stadium and decapitates Nadia. Later at night, the four friends sit in a coffee shop and see the news that reports the memorial for 52 people who died in the Speedway accident will be held tomorrow. So Laurie suggests they go to the memorial, but Hunt and Janet refuse. The next night, Laurie and Nick are at the memorial when they are stopped by a woman named Samantha who thanks Nick for his warning, as that saved her and her two young sons. Nick tells her that he's glad they're safe and are about to leave, but they are stopped by George, who greets them politely. Suddenly, Carter shows up and makes racist remarks towards George for not letting him save his wife. At night, Nick has a nightmare about a metal chain with a large hook attached to it, and Laurie comforts him. Later, a drunk Carter drives to George's house with a tow truck and plants a wooden cross in his yard before digging in the ground. Wind then causes objects to fall onto the truck's controls, causing the vehicle to lurch forward and leak fuel. Carter tries to stop it, but he gets caught by the truck's hook and is dragged till the friction ignites the leaking fuel, causing an explosion that kills him. The next morning, Laurie watches the news of Carter's death and quickly calls Nick, who explains that he saw hints related to Carter's death in his nightmare last night. He tells her he just had another vision involving scissors and smokes, but doesn't know who it concerns. Meanwhile, Samantha goes to get a haircut and sends her sons to play video games so they won't throw pebbles at a sign near a man who is while mowing the lawn. While Samantha gets her haircut, the wind causes body butter to fall on the floor, making it slippery, and a hairspray bottle becomes lodged against a heated straightener. When Samantha's sons return, they slip on the floor and the hairspray explodes, dislodging a ceiling fan that narrowly misses Samantha. Samantha steps out of the salon when the pebble thrown by the kids earlier comes shooting from under the lawnmower, and kills Samantha by passing right through her eye. Later, when the four friends read about Samantha's death in the newspaper, Laurie explains that Nick has been having visions. Nick adds that there are hints about how the next person is going to die, and then explains that there have been many situations where people were saved by a premonition but later died in the order they were supposed to die. He mentions that some articles say the death chain can be broken by intervention, while others say that it only shifts targets till it circles back and kills everyone. Janet freaks out after hearing this and leaves, while Hunt doesn't care and tells them that he will live his life to the fullest. Once they leave, Nick gets another vision of fire, a rope, and a bullet. So they decide to head back to the racetrack to figure out the order in which they would have died, but George finds them there and offers to show them the security footage of the accident. It makes Nick realize that Andy is next, and they go to his workplace to warn him, but he tells them that he has been having a hard time after Nadia's death. George tells him that he can relate, as his daughter and wife passed away because of his reckless drunk driving, but suddenly a car becomes loose because of a malfunction and almost hits Andy. Andy becomes cocky, saying that it isn't his time to die, when suddenly the metal attached to the cable holding the car snaps and strikes the gas tank, sending Andy halfway through the fence, killing him. Later, George questions who dies next, and Nick is confused as his friends died simultaneously in the premonition. So he tells Laurie to find Janet while he goes to see Hunt. On his way, Nick gets a vision of a water pipe bursting and quickly calls Hunt and leaves a message to warn him about the water, but Hunt doesn't check his voicemails as he is busy enjoying himself near the pool. A child throws water on Hunt using a water gun, so Hunt throws him into the water and places the water gun in a corner, which falls and activates the pool's drain system. Meanwhile, Laurie calls Janet, but Janet tells her that she is in a car wash and will call back in 5 minutes. However, during the wash, her car's antenna breaks and causes a mechanical error, which stops it in the middle of the wash. She gets another call from Laurie, but loses reception and is unable to hear her. She tries to reverse her car, but it doesn't move and her sunroof opens. Suddenly, the pipe above breaks, causing water to flood the vehicle while she desperately tries to get out. On the other hand, a ball hits Hunt and his lucky coin falls into the pool, so he dives after it but gets trapped when the pool pump suction pulls him in. He tries to swim back up, but the pressure increases, making escape impossible. Back with Janet, she manages to poke her head out of the sunroof, but her car starts moving, bringing her face to face with rotating cleaning brushes that threaten to decapitate her when Laurie and George reach just in time and push her car back. Laurie quickly pulls Janet out and saves her from the metal pipe that falls onto her car. Meanwhile, Nick reaches the pool and is unable to find Hunt. Soon, the pool pump reaches maximum pressure and sucks Hunt's insides, which splash out from the pump. At the car wash, Laurie asks George to stay with them since he's next on death's list, but he tells her that he has made peace with death as he believes that his family is waiting for him. Later that night, George believes it's his time to go. On the other side, Laurie tells Nick to abandon her when her time comes, as she doesn't want him to get hurt because of her, but Nick promises that they will be together till the end. They head to George's house and find him testing a theory. He explains that he has tried various ways to speed up the progress of the inevitable, but nothing seems to work. They conclude that saving Janet must have broken the chain and celebrate, promising to never take life for granted ever again. The next day, Nick packs his and Laurie's bags for their Amsterdam trip, while Laurie goes to watch a movie with her friends. While packing, a book falls open to a page showing someone drawing, triggering another vision, where Nick sees sirens, broken water pipes, and a huge snake. He is startled, which causes the TV remote to fall and turn on the TV. where news reports that another survivor named John Doe from Speedway's accident has been identified after being rescued from the rubble. Nick rushes to the hospital and calls George, informing him that they got the order wrong as John is next. Meanwhile, in the hospital, a nurse is running a bath for an old handicapped man but is called for an emergency, accidentally leaving the water running, which soon starts to overflow. John Doe lies in the room directly below as the ceiling begins to drip and crack, allowing a large amount of water to crash down below. John manages to get out of his bed and crawl towards the door, but just as Nick and George arrive in his room, the bathtub falls from above, killing John. Nick and George decide to head to the mall where Laurie and Janet are, but just as they are crossing the road, a car hits George, killing him. Meanwhile, Laurie and Janet head to the theater and notice a lot of construction is going on inside and around the mall. They get on the escalator, and Laurie's shoelace gets stuck, but it snaps, leaving them safe. Nick arrives at the mall and has another vision, which shows the theater blowing up. Meanwhile, wind blows a curtain into a fan, starting it and causing a flammable liquid to spill across the construction site directly behind the theater where Laurie sits. Laurie gets a bad feeling and tells Janet, but Janet calms her down, asking her to focus on the movie. A fire breaks out behind the theater, following the trail of spilled liquid towards several combustible barrels. Nick struggles to find the right theater since the movie is playing in multiple locations, but eventually locates them, and convinces Laurie to come with him while Janet refuses to go with them. However, just as they leave, the theater blows up with nails and metal fragments stabbing people in the crowd. Laurie tries to go back in for Janet, but Nick tells her to get out of the mall as the fire continues to spread and causes multiple explosions. The pillars in the mall start falling on the escalators, causing people to fall off them. Nick and Laurie, who are trapped on the escalator, desperately try to escape, but Laurie is pulled into the escalator's exposed gear, eventually pulling her entire body in and crushing her. Nick snaps back to reality, realizing this was another vision as George continues talking to him. But before he can warn George, the car hits him, causing his death. He rushes to the mall and this time goes to the construction area behind the movie theater, where a fire has already started. He tries to trigger the alarm but finds it broken, so he puts out the initial fire himself, but throws the empty extinguisher aside. It strikes a table, shaking a nail gun that begins firing at Nick, pinning him to the wall. Several nails puncture the barrel, spilling flammable liquid toward a small fire Nick hadn't completely extinguished. But Nick quickly grabs a burning stick to trigger the water sprinklers, which put out the fire before it can reach the combustible fluid. 2 weeks later, the three survivors meet at a coffee shop where a man stops and thanks Nick for saving lives by stopping the mall fire. The trio sits down and Nick starts to get a bad feeling again, suspecting they never truly escaped death's plan, and that they were meant to meet at this cafe at this exact moment when suddenly a truck swerves to avoid a falling scaffold and crashes right into the three of them. Final Destination 5 begins with Sam Lawton, who has set up breakfast for his office team building retreat, when his girlfriend Molly Harper shows up and tells him that the relationship isn't working for her anymore, so she wants to break up. Sam's boss, Peter Friedkin, is greeted by his girlfriend, Candace Hooper, who also interns at the company, and another colleague named Olivia Castle joins them. Their supervisor, Dennis, arrives and hurries everyone onto the bus for the trip. So Sam goes to get Nathan, the factory manager, who is resented by the factory workers for being their young supervisor, as the union representative named Roy openly challenges his authority. On the way to the bus, Sam tells Nathan that he has been offered a part-time job at a restaurant, but they want to send him to Paris, so he is unsure. The bus heads to the North Bay Bridge, a small portion of which is under construction, and Sam cuts his finger because of a sudden break. High winds shake the bridge violently, and combined with ongoing construction damage, they cause a crack to spread across the entire structure before it gives way. They quickly get out of the bus, but Candace goes on the other side, from where she falls onto a sailboat and is impaled. Next, their bus falls into the water, with Isaac still trapped inside as he was in the restroom when everyone else escaped. All others try to get to the safe side, but the bridge breaks, leaving them on a patch in the middle, while only Molly manages to get to safety by crossing a steel beam. Olivia goes next, but doesn't have her glasses and falls as the beam becomes diagonal. Just as she surfaces for air, a falling car crushes her. The cables start breaking and Nathan is killed by one of them while Sam runs as the bridge starts crumbling. Dennis is about to fall when hot tar falls on him, burning him alive before he falls to his death. Peter and Sam manage to leap onto the fence of the stable portion of the bridge while the rest crumbles behind them. However, a truck with rebar rods gets unstable, causing the rods to fall on Peter and fatally impale him. From the same truck, a sheet of metal falls and slices Sam in half right in front of Molly. Sam snaps back to reality and realizes that he had a premonition. When he experiences the same events, he panics and tells everyone to get off the bus, but no one listens to him except Molly. Dennis sends Peter after them, and Candace follows, while Olivia, Nathan, and Isaac get off the bus to check the situation. However, the cables start snapping, so they quickly run and are saved because of Sam's warning. Later, Agent Jim Block interrogates Sam about his involvement, and Sam explains he had a vision, while Peter vouches that Sam has never shown extremist tendencies. When Jim asks if Sam was upset about breaking up with Molly, she declines to answer, calling it a private matter. He asks the same from Sam, but another officer comes in to say that the accident happened because of high winds and structural damage, so all of the survivors are allowed to leave. After that, the news reports that 86 people have died and a memorial is held, where Isaac questions how Sam knew about the collapse, and Sam explains that he doesn't have any clear answer for that. In his speech, Dennis accidentally includes Isaac's name among those who died, making Olivia and Nathan laugh. As Peter and Sam leave, they are stopped by William Bloodworth, who tells them to be careful as Death doesn't like to be cheated. They are creeped out, but Peter thanks Bloodworth for the advice. After his restaurant shift, Sam visits Molly's house, and he notices the lights flickering but pays little attention, instead focusing on a photo of them together. Molly comes with tea, and Sam tells her that his priority was to keep her safe when the accident happened, and that she was all he could think about. When he asks why she wants to break up, she explains that she wants him to pursue his dream job in Paris since he's worked so hard for it, but Sam says that he wants to stay back for her. Meanwhile, Candace prepares for her final gymnastics practice, but feels uneasy and tells Peter she doesn't want to practice today. However, Peter motivates her to go, as she really loves the sport. He goes into the audience and cheers for Candace, who is about to begin her routine. However, her lucky band snaps just before her turn, but she doesn't think much of it. She begins her routine, narrowly avoiding a screw that falls from an overhead fan onto her beam. Moving to the uneven bars, she does her routine as another gymnast steps on the fallen screw. The girl screams and falls, scattering chalk powder in front of the fan, which blows right into Candace's face, causing her to fall to her death. Sam hears the news and rushes to comfort Peter, but sees Bloodworth there, who vanishes before Sam can confront him. The next day, they all pack their stuff, and Molly tells Sam how unusual it is to have the office this quiet. Isaac goes through the desks of the deceased employees and steals anything he finds of value, and eventually finds a spa coupon in an employee's cupboard. So he heads to the spa. There he asks the receptionist about the coupon, and she informs him that it will cover 2 physical therapy sessions. However, his inappropriate comments prompt the receptionist to assign him an elderly Chinese masseuse who cracks his bones harshly, saying he is stiff. Meanwhile, the rest of the survivors drink in the office, but Olivia has to leave early because of her Uber. As she gets up, she drops a picture of hers, and the glass cracks, making her worry. But she hurries out for her ride. They discuss things like finding new jobs and starting over, but Peter wonders how Candace could die from doing something she has done for the past 15 years. He explains that he feels guilty for motivating her to do her routine, and angrily throws the glass into the wall before apologizing and leaving. On the other hand, Isaac gets acupuncture, and the lady tells him to sleep for 30 minutes before leaving the room. However, a fire starts because of the incense, and Isaac screams for help. But when no one comes, he tries to get out of the massage bed, falling face first on the ground. His fall causes sterilization fluid to spill and ignite, though Isaac feels relieved when the flames don't reach him. However, a Buddha statue on the shelf falls and crushes his head. Meanwhile, back at the office, Sam tells Molly to come to Paris with him, as he knows he will regret it if he doesn't take the job but isn't ready to leave her. Sam is interrupted by Peter, who tells them about Isaac's death. They rush to the scene where Sam spots Bloodworth and immediately approaches him, asking him why he is at all the death scenes. Bloodworth says that he is a coroner, so Sam asks him to help them, but Bloodworth tells him that he has seen this before, as a lucky few survive a disaster and then death comes for them one by one. When Nathan asks if they're doomed, Bloodworth explains that survival requires taking someone else's remaining time in the living world and giving them their death place. Bloodworth leaves, and Peter says that now death is after all of them, but Sam corrects him, saying that Molly doesn't die in his premonition because he gets her across before the bridge falls. This angers Peter, who accuses Sam of prioritizing Molly's life over the others, and when Nathan tells him to calm down, Peter storms off. The remaining survivors decide to warn Olivia, who is at an eye clinic discussing LASIK surgery with her doctor. She goes inside the operating room and is nervous about the procedure, but the doctor leaves her for a moment. Meanwhile, water spills onto an electrical switch outside the operating room, causing a malfunction that sends the laser coolant far beyond safety limits. Olivia struggles to free herself, but accidentally drops a remote that activates the laser. The beam strikes her eye, destroying it as she desperately covers her other eye. Just as Sam and Molly reach the clinic, they hear Olivia screaming and rush inside, but Olivia trips and crashes through the glass window, landing fatally on a car's windshield below. Later, Agent Jim shows up on the site and tells Sam that he knows Sam isn't the one behind the murder of these people, but he believes that Sam must know something. Sam reluctantly explains his theory that death is hunting them because they weren't supposed to survive the bridge collapse, but Jim looks confused by this explanation. The next morning, Molly wakes up to find Sam writing something, and he tells her that he is trying to figure out the sequence in which people die in his premonition, as they are dying in the same order. She asks who is next, and Sam tells her it's Nathan. Meanwhile, at the factory, Nathan discovers Roy has written profanities on his time card. so he calls Roy, who is furious about his reduced work hours. When Nathan notices something dangerous approaching, he tries to push Roy to safety but accidentally shoves him directly into the path of a swinging construction hook that pierces his skull. On the other hand, Peter confronts Dennis, telling him it's kill or be killed, but Dennis doesn't understand, assuming Peter is suffering from severe survivor's guilt. Once Peter leaves, Dennis calls Agent Jim, informing him that Peter is threatening people. Meanwhile, Peter goes to the factory and questions Nathan about whether he killed Roy, but Nathan quickly denies it. However, Peter insists that Nathan put Roy in the way so that he could take his place. When Dennis arrives at the factory, a wrench falls into the machinery, launching it toward him with fatal force. Later, as Sam gets ready for work, Molly tries to stop him, urging him to be cautious, but he tells her that he doesn't want to live in fear. If death comes for him tomorrow or 50 years from now, it doesn't matter as long as she is by his side. However, once Sam is at work, he becomes wary of fire, knives, meat slicers, mincers, and even skewers. He manages to finish the shift and tells the head chef that he would like to take up the offer in Paris. Sam finds Molly and shares the news, but before they can celebrate, Peter knocks at the restaurant window. Sam invites him in, and Peter explains that he spent the entire night contemplating whether he could kill a stranger to steal their remaining lifespan, and eventually convinced himself that he could do it. He went out and found several opportunities to kill strangers, but couldn't follow through because he believed they deserved to live. However, he says that Candace didn't deserve to die, nor did Olivia or Isaac. He questions why Molly deserves to live more than the others and draws a gun, aiming it at her, but Sam flips the table to stop Peter, and the gunshot is heard by Agent Jim, who calls for backup. Sam tells Molly to hide and warns Peter that he'll have to kill him first, but Peter doesn't care, reasoning that Sam will die eventually anyway, and knocks him unconscious. As Sam lies unconscious, a knife falls and narrowly misses him, so Peter claims that it's not Sam's time to die yet. He turns on all the gas stoves, saying that he won't kill Sam but will set the trap for death. Molly slowly takes out a knife for her defense, but she is faced with Agent Jim, who asks her if she is okay. She quickly tells him about Peter having a gun, but before Jim can do anything, Peter shoots him and announces that it's finally Sam's turn. Molly begs Peter to leave, but he refuses, saying he can't leave a witness to a federal agent's murder, and starts shooting. Molly runs, and Sam regains consciousness, so he quickly attacks Peter, making his gun fly onto a stove. They fight violently, with Peter nearly forcing Sam's head into burning oil before Sam breaks free. Peter smacks Sam's head in a drawer and is about to end him with a knife when Molly jumps on Peter. He throws her on the floor and is about to stab her when Sam stabs him in the back with a skewer. He quickly goes to comfort Molly and embraces her, as they think Sam gets Jim's life, as Sam killed Peter. 2 weeks later, they board Flight 180 to Paris. Sam notices a passenger named Alex fighting to be allowed out of the plane but dismisses it. After takeoff, Sam overhears a flight attendant telling another passenger that the student claimed to have had a vision and starts worrying. Before Sam can do anything, the plane begins breaking apart, sucking Molly out, who hits the wing and is sliced in half, while Sam is burned to death by fire from the explosion. Meanwhile, Nathan grieves Roy's death when a coworker reveals the autopsy found Roy had an enlarged blood vessel in his brain and would have died soon anyway. Suddenly, a plane part hits the bar, making it collapse and killing Nathan. Final Destination Bloodlines begins in 1969 with a woman named Iris Campbell wearing a blindfold in a car with her boyfriend Paul as he drives her to a surprise destination. She wants to remove the blindfold, but Paul promises she'll love the surprise. They stop at a place, and Paul reveals that his surprise is getting them reservations for the grand opening of the Sky View, a high-rise restaurant tower. Iris is excited, but before entering, she notices a guard scolding a young boy for stealing coins from the fountain as it brings bad luck. They get inside an elevator that has trouble closing, and Iris starts feeling paranoid as they move up to the restaurant. However, upon reaching, the receptionist tells them that their reservations have been canceled because they are over the maximum capacity, so they head to the bar. Iris takes a rose from a vase and places it in Paul's lapel, accidentally pricking her finger on a thorn. Paul goes to get some champagne while Iris looks at the view, which triggers her fear of heights, and she rushes to the restroom as she feels nauseated. In the restroom, she meets a woman who asks Iris about her pregnancy, and Iris reveals that she hasn't told Paul yet, so the woman comforts her. Iris goes out and Paul takes her to the rooftop for some fresh air, where he proposes to her, and she reveals that she is pregnant, which makes Paul overjoyed. However, a kid throws coins down the building and one coin falls inside the vents, causing the fan to stop. Iris and Paul join the dance floor to celebrate, unaware of the cracks on the glass floor. The pressure gets too much for the metal support below, and the bolts start snapping loose one after another. The stuck coin causes a fan blade to shatter, sending it directly into a gas pipe, which bursts. Iris gets a weird feeling and backs off from the dance floor when suddenly the glass shatters, causing everyone dancing on it to fall and break the metal support underneath. Paul, who is holding onto the remaining glass, eventually falls to the ground. People panic, causing a woman to run into the live cooking station, making her clothes catch fire. She reaches the vent from where the gas is leaking, causing a huge explosion that burns most of the people alive. The survivors rush to the stairs, but the tower cracks, making them all fall to their deaths. The rest move to the elevator, crowding it, but the receptionist forcefully tries to get inside. However, because of overcapacity, the elevator falls down, crushing the receptionist. Iris notices cracks in the tower as half of it starts to fall and quickly rushes to safety, while a piano falls onto that side, causing glass to shatter, which makes more people fall. The kid who was throwing coins makes it out of the building, but the piano falls directly on him. Iris and a small child are the only survivors, but as the rest of the building falls, Iris grabs a rebar but eventually falls onto debris that fatally impales her. 55 years later, a college student, Stefani Reyes, is in class when she snaps back to reality from this vision. Later, she has the same nightmare and tells her roommate that she thinks she is dreaming about her maternal grandmother, as her name was Iris too, but she never met her. Her roommate tells Stefani to go home, so Stefani heads there the next day but is continuously plagued by the visions of Iris's death. She is greeted by her father named Marty, who finds it weird that Stefani is suddenly looking for her grandmother and informs her that he threw away her mother's stuff after she left him. Stefani's brother Charlie is heading to his cousin's and Stefani goes to drop him off. On the way, she tells him that she is on academic probation because of recurring nightmares, but Charlie doesn't take it seriously. Once they reach the house, they are greeted by cousins Eric, Julia and Bobby. But Julia ignores Stefani and goes to Charlie, so Stefani approaches her Uncle Howard and Aunt Brenda. She asks Howard about Iris, but he refuses to talk about her. She explains the story, but Howard tells her that Iris is a deeply disturbed woman. When Stefani insists on meeting Iris, Howard explains that after the death of their father, he and Stefani's mother Darlene were subjected to an overprotective and isolated upbringing, as Iris would lock them in the house so they wouldn't die. She was so paranoid that the state took Howard and Darlene away, but Iris tracked their foster homes, and when her grandchildren were born, she started sending them letters with pictures of dead bodies. Stefani asks if they have any of the letters, but Howard tells her to stay away from Iris. Stefani tells Brenda that her life is falling apart because of the dream, so Brenda tells her the drawer where Iris's letters are hidden. Stefani finds a picture of Iris who is identical to the one in her dreams, and heads to an isolated, fortified cabin where Iris now resides. She tells Stefani to empty her pockets at the gate and finally allows her inside. Iris comments on Stefani's similarity to Darlene but stops her from coming any closer before offering her a seat. Stefani explains her situation, and Iris tells her that the nightmare was her premonition. In a flashback, she stops the kid from throwing the penny in the vent, covers the live station, and tells everyone to get off the cracked dance floor, saving several lives. However, death began taking the lives of the survivors in the order they should have died, including Paul. But over the years, Iris trained herself and documented in a book how to see death signs and avoid it. She tells Stefani that 2 months ago she was diagnosed with cancer, which is the same time Stefani started getting nightmares, suggesting that the premonition was passed to her. She asks Stefani to stay with her as the outside world is too dangerous, saying that she hasn't stepped out in the past 20 years. Stefani doesn't believe her and leaves the house, and Iris hesitates to go after her because she feels the warning wind. However, Iris follows her outside to give her the book, and when Stefani still doesn't believe her, Iris allows herself to be impaled by a weather vane to prove her claims. At Iris's funeral, everyone grieves, but when Darlene shows up, Stefani leaves, as she resents Darlene for abandoning them. Charlie follows Stefani to the car and says that Stefani did the same to him, as she never picked up his or Julia's calls ever since she went to college. Stefani tries to deny it, but Charlie tells her that she didn't care about anyone at home before the nightmares started. Later, while Stefani goes through Iris's book, the rest of the family prepares for a barbecue. Bobby drops a glass near the icebox and a shard falls into the ice, which no one notices. Darlene shows up with peanut butter cookies, forgetting that Bobby is allergic, but Howard tells everyone not to make a fuss about it. Bobby makes drinks for everyone, and the shard of glass goes into one of the drinks. Howard tells them that Iris's death should be a reminder that they should love and spend as much time as possible with their family. Julia chokes but then says that she found a bug in her glass and dunks the drink. Later, Howard tries to get Darlene to stay, but she refuses, saying that her children are better off without her. Charlie and Bobby are on the trampoline, and it is revealed that the glass shard is in Marty's drink. Stefani feels something is wrong and rushes to the party, where Bobby gets stuck on the trampoline, causing the Jenga to fall on Marty's drink, and the glass shard falls on the lawn. Howard gets off the trampoline to greet Stefani but steps on it. He tells everyone he is okay, but a garden fork falls onto the lawnmower, starting it and then crushing fallen Howard's face in front of the entire family. After Howard's funeral, Stefani becomes paranoid and thoroughly reads Iris's book, eventually making a flow chart. She calls the entire family the next day and explains that death is coming for them, but they are hesitant to believe her. Julia comments on it being irrelevant, but Stefani says that death is coming for the families because the people in the sky view were never supposed to have any family. She explains that Marty and Brenda are safe as they are not from Iris's bloodline, which makes Eric the next target, which will be followed by Julia and then Bobby. Brenda begins weeping, telling Stefani that she can't handle a minute of this and leaves with her children. Darlene tells Stefani that it can sound convincing but tells her not to let Iris's views derail her life. The next day, Eric is the last one at the tattoo parlor, as he has to lock up, so he starts cleaning the chairs, but then he looks at his dad's picture and plays sad music. He gives himself a new tattoo of the word dad, but the figurine on the speaker falls and hits a glass, which breaks. Eric quickly gets up to check if someone is in the store and accidentally spills the disinfectant bottle. As he sits down to clean the broken glass, a chair breaks from one end of the roof and catches his septum ring. The fan pulls the chain from the other end, causing him to stand on the chair and then eventually on the glass, which breaks. However, a fire ignites, which is fueled by the disinfectant, and Eric falls onto it. The next morning, Stefani rushes to Eric's house with Charlie, who informs her that the tattoo parlor burned down last night. However, they find Eric perfectly fine, who says that he managed to survive because of his leather jacket. He tells her that he is invincible and doesn't listen to Stefani, who tries to protect him. But Eric angrily tells her to leave his family alone. Julia agrees with Eric and goes for a jog when a soccer ball hits her head, causing her to fall into a large dustbin, which is immediately picked up and thrown in the truck with other trash. The three run after her to stop the truck, and they manage to do so, but Julia is crushed to death by the garbage truck's compactor. Stefani weeps, saying she should have got the order right, but Brenda says that it's her fault, as Eric isn't Howard's biological son. She says that she had an affair, so Eric is not on death's list. Bobby realizes that he is next and asks Stefani to help him, but she is unsure if she can be of any help. However, Charlie says that Stefani predicted what might happen, and Darlene believes that too, but Marty says that Darlene has traumatized his kids enough, so he doesn't want her to encourage Stefani anymore. Bobby tells them to focus on evading death for now, and he reminds Stefani that she talked about someone surviving death. So Stefani quickly looks in Iris's book, which states that JB survived. Darlene says that JB was a friend of Iris who worked in Hope River Hospital, and they quickly decide to head there, but advise Bobby to stay at home so he can be out of danger. However, he refuses to stay behind. They go to Darlene's camping truck, but Eric removes the peanut butter from there before Bobby goes in. On the way, Darlene explains that she was becoming obsessively controlling like Iris, and realized that she was ruining the childhood of Charlie and Stefani because of her paranoia, so she decided it was better if she went away. They reach the hospital and meet Bloodworth, who explains that Iris saved his life as he was the child who died after her in the Skyview premonition. He explains that his mother was a singer and he wasn't supposed to be there, but his fate was written. He adds that Iris tracked him down years later and they tried to learn death's rules together, as he even helped her fortify her cabin. They ask him how to survive death, and he explains that there are only two ways: taking another life or being clinically dead and resuscitated, giving the example of Kimberly Corman, who drowned and was given a second life, which broke death's chain. Stefani questions why Iris didn't try these methods, and he says that both of the methods are extremely risky. Stefani says that there must be another way, and he explains that for years people have visited him looking for advice, but the truth is that all of them, including him, are going to die. He tells them to enjoy the time they have left, as life is precious, and leaves. Stefani is devastated, but Darlene tells her that if Iris managed to hold death off for decades, then they can too. Meanwhile, Eric and Bobby leave the room, as Eric convinces Bobby to try some peanuts, which will result in an allergic reaction killing him, but the doctors will bring him back to life. They go to a vending machine and select a peanut snack, but it doesn't fall, which makes Eric angrily punch the machine. He then tries to tilt it till their snack falls, but Bobby is against the idea and tries to push the vending machine back. The snack finally falls out, and Eric takes Bobby inside an MRI room, where Eric brings a wheelchair and promises that he won't let Bobby die. The MRI machine activates because of a fallen clipboard, and just as Bobby eats the peanut snack, the allergic reaction starts, making him try to reach for the EpiPen. He accidentally hits a button, which causes the MRI machine to malfunction and rip out Eric's piercings, pulling him in before fatally impaling him with the wheelchair. Bobby reaches the EpiPen and gives himself the injection, but a nurse opens the door, noticing something wrong, which causes the coil from a vending machine to penetrate Bobby's head, killing him. Stefani, Charlie, and Darlene mourn the deaths, but Darlene tells them that the hospital is not safe, prompting Charlie to say that no place is safe. Stefani drops the coin in Iris's book, which is picked up by an old lady. This makes Stefani realize that Iris survived in her cabin for decades, but Charlie isn't interested in the idea of being locked up in a cabin forever. So Darlene says that as she is next on the list, only she has to go and stay there. However, the kids refuse to let her go alone, so the three head there together. Stefani feels that death is about to make a move and she is unsure what's coming, so they quickly crash through the front gate, but Stefani's seatbelt jams. She tells Darlene to get inside the house as she is next on the list. However, a spark causes a small fire, and just as Darlene opens the door, a pot falls on the gas stove, turning the gas on. Darlene quickly pushes Charlie down, but a spark reaches the gas and she is badly injured in the explosion, which causes the RV to fall into the water, making Stefani drown. A lamppost is about to fall on Charlie, but Darlene saves him before she is crushed by it. Charlie quickly goes into the water to save Stefani, but accidentally cuts his own finger before cutting the seatbelt and freeing Stefani. Stefani becomes unconscious, but Charlie pulls her out and gives her CPR, which resuscitates her. Charlie tells her that she died, but he managed to bring her back, breaking death's chain. 1 week later, Stefani goes to drop Charlie off for the prom, but Stefani pricks her finger while adjusting his rose as they wait for Jenny, Charlie's girlfriend. There she meets Jenny's father, Dr. Reddick, who explains that if Stefani were unconscious and Charlie got her breathing, it means that she was not clinically dead after drowning because she was resuscitated before undergoing cardiac arrest and thus her heart never stopped. Meanwhile, the old lady goes to buy cookies, which makes the coin drop and get stuck in the train track. It causes a timber-carrying freight train to get off the track nearby, and its cargo fatally crushes the siblings. This was one epic franchise to recap, and your likes and comments are most appreciated. Thank you and see you on the next one.